There we go. All right, try one more time, Ariel.
Insert something here.
Okay, that's it. And I'll
Great.
turn that up right there. Perfect. Alrighty. How are you, Ariel?
Doing good, actually. How about
Nice,
you?
dude. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well myself. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 1 of our currently unnamed podcast. I'm Smart Alec, and joining me today and I had to ask for pronunciation the other night, JuegAriel? I think I got that
Close
right.
enough.
Close enough,
That's
yeah.
the that's the thing. I don't even know how to pronounce my own name.
You'd
I just
think that you would have that down once you make your username, but
I just accept everything people tell me.
there you go. Yeah, I mean, I just call you Ariel anyway. But yeah, this is our first episode. Or really, technically, this is my podcast, but I'm bringing Ariel in. So today, he gets to join me on this for now. So he gets to join me.
Yay.
So today, we're going to talk about the upcoming Tiny 10 and what we think about it and all of these games. So for those who don't know, the Tiny 10 is 10 Game Boy games in a race, back to back to back to back to back. Yeah, 10 games in a row, all back to back. And this is the 10th time that people are doing this. 10 times, man. Ariel, how many of these races have you done?
Uh, uh, Technically all of them except except Tiny 10 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
yeah, go ahead.
in a race setting, I have only done
7. I think I've done 3 of these, but I also did Tiny 10 Remix 2.
probably, I guess. I know you did 4.
Yeah, my first one was Tiny 10 4, and then I did 5. 6, I sat out. I was going to do 6, but then I ended up backing out. 7, I did, and that was the one that I won. 8, I technically did, however, I forfeited that race, and then 9, I didn't do. And then there was Tiny 10 Remix 2, which I did.
Yep.
But we can reminisce about previous Tiny 10s another episode, if we want. But today we're talking about the upcoming one. This list has been out for a few weeks, so we both have done some practice on these games. I think we should start talking about them and talking about what we think. So, this Tiny 10 is. There is a slight twist on this one, and that is all 10 of these games on my screen, you have to beat the entire game. This is the first time where all of them you beat the whole game. There's no
Well, not
there's
really
no
the
you
first
get to a
time.
certain point and then you stop. This is all beat the game.
It's not really the first time, though.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the Tiny 10 remixes, those were
I
all
was
beat the
talking
games.
about 6.
Tiny 10 6. Were all those beat the game? I guess so.
Yeah, Wario Land, Double Dragon, Nerd
Yeah,
Life.
that's true. Yeah, all of them were. Then again, I don't remember that one very well. I just remember some of the games. That one, yeah, gosh, that list was super hard. But anyways, this list I've done runs of all except one of these games, but the game I haven't done runs of yet is Mega Man 4. But I did play that a little bit just to get a feel for it. But I think this is a pretty solid list.
Yeah, the main difference about the others is that most of them are short, and then you have Mega Man 4, which can take an hour.
Right, right. Yeah, because the world record for Mega Man 4 is I think a high 39 minute, and then the rest of the runs can all be beaten in less than 20 minutes.
Yep.
So yeah, it's I think it works out all right. So anyways, I think we should just go through each of the games and then talk about each one individually, and then we can kind of talk about the list overall.
Yeah,
So
seems good.
the first game, which apparently everybody wanted, although I didn't really have a say in this because I just don't have a preference. Disney's Mulan for the Game Boy. This game, honestly, I don't even think it's the worst game in the list. I really don't.
Me neither. But it's still not a really good game.
It's not. The controls are super. Like the thing is that if you play the game enough, you kind of understand the controls, and then the game becomes easier. When I was practicing this game, and I even bought a cartridge of this game now. It didn't cost me very much. I think it cost like $6 or $7. But you know what this game kind of reminds me of a little bit? It reminds me a little bit of Dragon's Lair for the NES, because in that game you have to be very specific on your controls and where you're going, and like you have to press the button exactly when you need to jump or you need to attack. Like it's all memorizing when you have to press what. And I kind of think Mulan is the same way, except Mulan is a lot faster.
Yeah, now that you say that, it's really similar.
I mean, I think Mulan's a better game than Dragon's Lair. A lot of games are better than Dragon's Lair, but yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking playing Mulan. Um, I don't know. What do you think of Mulan?
It's weird because it definitely looks like a bad game, but then you play it and it's not that bad. But then some moments of the gameplay come and it is really bad.
Yeah.
It's really confusing.
Hmm.
Also, I'm really disappointed that Mushu is not in the game.
Yeah. I don't remember who I was telling the other day, but I don't even know if I've even seen the Mulan movie. If I have, it's probably been like 20 years, honestly. Like I don't have memories of seeing Mulan, so maybe I need to watch the movie and to prepare for the Tiny 10, like that'll help. I don't know. But yeah, the reason Mulan's first is because if you're playing on a Super Game Boy, some Super Game Boy or some games, if you use on a Super Game Boy, it like has an enhanced version to where like the border changes and like the game is all in color. It's like all fancy and stuff, and Mulan is like that. Which I know Mo, who puts the lists together, he likes to put those first just to, I guess it's for like technical reasons, which it makes sense. Um, but no, honestly, I kind of think Mulan is appropriate as a starter game because I know a lot of people have wanted Mulan in a Tiny 10, or like didn't somebody say like if there's 10 runs of Mulan on the leaderboard, then I'll finally put it in the list.
Not only 10 runs, but 10 sub 10 runs.
Oh my gosh. Hey, I did get a sub 10. My PB in this game right now is a 934. I do want to try to beat it, but of the practice I did, yeah, I did get sub 10, so there you go.
I
But
just find it
yeah.
interesting because it's like, why? Just
It's
why?
yeah. I kind of I'm interested in myself in knowing like what exactly goes behind the selection process for not just Tiny 10, but there's other multi-game races like the Big 20 and the Mega 16. Like I'm curious how exactly games are chosen and like how are games determined, like how much practice is put into a game to determine, okay, yeah, this is perfect for a list like this. I don't know, maybe sometime in the future we can get a clearer idea there. But yeah, I think Mulan's a good starter game because it's like, hey, people wanted this game in a Tiny 10. Well, here you go. It's the first game. So yeah, I kind of think it works out fine. Um,
Not only that, but it's not too because of the password system.
yeah, so normally you can't use passwords if you're doing like world record runs or if you're just doing runs in general. However, for the race, any game that has passwords, you're allowed to use those if you game over. So that's really helpful for a race like this. There's a couple other games we'll get to later that have passwords. But yeah, first game Mulan. Now, the second game, R-Type 2. Honestly, it's probably my least favorite in the list, but I don't even think it's that bad of a game. Um,
It's my least favorite because I just can't stand shoot 'em ups. I just can't.
I gotcha. Yeah, so R-Type 2 is a shoot 'em up or a shmup. And so you're shooting stuff, or if you're trying to get world record, you're not shooting stuff because shooting actually lags the game some.
Yep.
But it's safer to do it if you don't know what you're doing.
Technically, you can beat the game without shooting.
Right. Well, yeah, that's true because the bosses technically you don't have to shoot, but for the
Yep.
bosses it is faster to shoot at that point.
Actually, I have seen the world record, and I think only the stage 4 boss is the one.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, Atros has world record in I think like half of these games. So yeah. The record used to be a high 12-minute in R Type 2, but then once it was put in the Tiny 10 list, Atros beat it by more than a minute and a half. So, yeah, that guy's
Which is
crazy.
really impressive for a 10-minute auto scroller. I mean,
Yeah,
really, really
yeah.
impressive.
It's worth noting that R Type 2 we play on easy mode, which I think the difference between that and the other difficulties is your damage. Like you do a ton of damage on easy. It's either that or the enemies have less health. I don't remember which is which, but anyways, my problem with R Type 2 is like, well, first off, it's better than R Type 1. R Type 1 is
Yes,
really
a
bad.
lot.
Ugh, God, that game. That R Type 1 was in Tiny 10.6, and that was one of the reasons I was considering backing out was that, and there were a couple other games in that list. But R Type 2, it's the slowest game in the list, but then again, it's an auto scroller, it's a shmup. Um, I don't know. I couldn't really get excited about that game or like, I'm not there are some of these games where I'm looking forward to going back to and improving my time, but I can't say that about R-Type 2. I straight up can't do it.
Same here.
I think it's still a fine choice, but
Yes, it works well for a race.
hmm
Um, the bosses are easy. It infinite continues.
yeah.
It's pretty good for a race, but it's just
It's worth noting that if you die, then you lose all your power-ups, and so, if you want to go absolutely like if you want to get record or something, you can't die, you can't lose your power ups because otherwise you're losing a ton of time. And I know stage 2 mainly is the stage where you can lose a ton of time or like it's very easy to die.
yeah.
You've got those stupid waterfall. Like why is there water in that? In why is there water in the game?
That is a great question. How many other shoot 'em ups have you seen water?
Um, I can't think of any off the top of my head. I really
That's
can't.
the thing.
Yeah. But the thing is first off, R-Type 2 is the second game in the list, and I think that helps, is that we're kind of getting this kind of a game out of the way early. And plus, like you said, it's easy. Like it really is. We talk about how you can lose a lot of time and stuff like that, but it's still appropriate for a race. And plus, I know Mo likes to put shmups in these lists. I know Tiny 10.7 had Battle Unit Zeoth, Tiny 10.9 had Nemesis. So there's
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, R Type 2 is my least favorite in the list. But that being said, I still think it's a fine choice. Like it's not a horrible game. It's just I can't really get excited about it honestly. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's more like it's how it's the least favorite game, but more because of personal than because of objective being good or bad.
right, right. Yeah, that makes sense. So, anyways, that's two games out of the way already. So number 3, and on my screen the full name's not there. I don't even know how to pronounce the entire name, but for this discussion, we're just gonna call it Crayon Shinchan 1.
Come on,
Which,
it's Crayon Shinchan Ora to Shiro wa Otomodachi da yo.
yeah,
Obviously.
yeah, that. Um, so Crayon Shinchan, I think there's 5 Game Boy games of Crayon
Yeah.
Shinchan, and I don't. Was Crayon Shinchan an anime or a manga? Like
It's an anime.
an anime, okay. I don't know too much about Crayon Shin-chan, but what I do know is Crayon Shin-chan 4 and 2 were in Tiny Tins before, so having another Crayon Shin-chan for the 10th race kind of, I think it's really appropriate.
Yes,
And
and
so,
being the first one is
yeah, the first one definitely, which I think Crayon Shin-chan 1, I think it's fun. There's a couple of things I don't like about it, but they're not deal breakers. One of them being that the first level of the game, you literally have to sit there for a minute. So if you want to grind runs, you have to sit there and waste a minute every time. But it's still Crayon Shin-chan. Like those games don't play poorly or anything like that. The other thing that is I don't want to say I don't like it. It's one of those things where it's just you have to be mindful of is that there are no continues. So if you lose all your lives, you're back at the start of the game.
yeah, that's one of the things that I think they fixed on the second entry and beyond.
Yeah. Um, but the good news is that Crayon Shin-chan's a short game. My PB is right now 640, and I think the world record is it's a 548. So if you were to game over in stage 2 or 3, you're losing maybe 3 or 4 minutes, which I mean, yeah, it's a lot of time. However, if you're just wanting to go through the race without trying to win or anything, 3 or 4 minutes, that's not a horrible thing to happen, I don't
Yeah,
think. But yeah, there's no passwords, no continues in this game. But um, I don't know. I think again, I think so far the thing that I'm gonna mention a lot and as going through the list is that these games all seem very appropriate for this particular Tiny Ten list. And
they do.
I think that's why a lot of people are interested in this race is just because of the game picks. I think they were a lot stronger. Um,
Favorite Crayon Shinchan?
what's that? Favorite?
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I prefer Crayon Shinchan 4. Of the 3 that I've played, I like 4 because 4 doesn't have any mini games. I mean, it does, but you can skip them. 2 is definitely my least favorite though. I didn't really enjoy that one when I played it. And then 1
Well,
I'd say is in the middle.
the thing about four is that four doesn't really have mini games. Well, as you said, you can skip them.
Yeah, you can skip because they're
However,
yeah, go ahead.
Crayon Shinchan 5 has literally no platforming. It's just a minigame collection.
Oh my gosh. Oh man. Speaking of minigame collections, game number 5 is one of those, but we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, yeah, I think Crayon Shinchan. I think because you can also get extra lives in that game by collecting. I don't know what the pickups are, but it's kind of I don't even know what they are. They looked like scrolls to me. I don't know why, but if you pick up 10 scrolls, you get an extra life. Or I think if you do perfectly in a mini game, you get an extra life or something. Like there's like a bicycle racing mini game where if you get first place, which you have to get anyway because it's the fastest option, you get an extra life. So
Yeah,
um,
something like that.
yeah, and plus you don't the fastest way to get through the game is a bit dangerous, but there's also like you can climb up poles to go to the top of buildings and no there's no enemies up there, so you can play it safe if you want, which for race day if you're not confident, I would recommend doing that cuz I'll probably do that. So yeah, I'm just trying to I'm planting the seeds in people's brain like, "Hey, do this that way I can't lose time against you in the race." But yeah,
Doesn't matter. Atras will win anyway.
yeah, if he plays in this one, because I think Tiny Ten Remix 2, he put a lot of effort into some of the games, but he ended up not joining the race. But if he joins this race, then he's gonna smoke everybody. Like
Mm.
Atros is super good at Game Boy games. I don't know how he does it. He's just super good at them.
And if it's not Atras, it's probably unless something happens to his card, as always
Yeah,
happens.
yeah. Gren and Hero will probably. I mean, he's gonna be a strong contender no matter what. But yeah, we can discuss like who all is interested in the race after we discuss the list. But
Yeah.
anyways, So we talked earlier about how Mega Man 4 is the longest game in the list, and it's the very end. But the second longest game is number 4, which is Bonk's Adventure, which I think was one of the first two games chosen for this list, actually.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because there was like a Tiny Ten research document that Mo made where he posted notes about what games he's researched and said like no, this will never be in, or like this is too hard, or that kind of thing. And I know for like approved games, I know Bonk's Adventure I think was one of the first two. The other one was Fish Dude, but I think Bonk's Adventure was one of the first ones. And it makes sense because Bonk's Adventure I had a lot of fun with, even though I'm not very good at the game right now. But I don't know. I thought it's it's yeah, it's a platformer, but you can like you almost can hover in that game by flipping around because basically your head will kill enemies. You can jump, and then if you press B, you slam your head onto the ground, and you can kill enemies that way and all that. And if you like keep flipping around, you can like hover. So I don't know. I
The thing about Bonk, it may be a platformer, but it's a totally unique platformer.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think the record is extremely good. I think Jorf has it with a 1637 Bonk's Adventure, and my PB is a 2511. So, um, but yeah, I don't know. I think Bonk plays really well. Um, I mean, I think there's also infinite continues in that game as well. Or if it's not infinite, I think you only get a certain amount of continues, but it's if you play it safe, you're not going to lose that much health, and plus there are health upgrades and pickups in the game as well.
It's curious because I believe I don't know if it's the SNES version or TurboGrafx 16 version, but I know one of them has a very bad reputation.
Oh, I didn't know this. I mean, I knew there were other versions, but I didn't know that it got a bad rep on other platforms.
Okay, one sec. Can you please go to
No,
admin?
that's fine.
Sorry.
I'll just kind of talk more about bonks. But yeah, I think yeah, it's the second longest game, but I don't think. I mean, that doesn't concern me, and I don't think it should concern anybody who's interested in doing this race, because yeah, it's a longer game, but again, it plays really well. It's a fun game, honestly. I actually, while doing practice, I found this random glitch in the game. I don't even know how I did it, but if it can be replicated, then it'll save time. Basically, what I did was you can get invincibility in this game if you collect certain power ups. And what I think happened was the invincibility ran out on the same frame because basically at the end of each level or each screen, when you get to like the sign with an arrow telling you to like go to the next screen or whatever, it plays a little jingle and then you can't move or anything. It automatically walks you off the screen. But somehow what I did was I ran out of invincibility during the transition, and I skipped to the rest of the transition, saving a few seconds. And I don't know how I did it. And I think Legs said that she was going to task it, but I don't know if she has gotten to that yet or not.
Okay, I'm sorry. I need to be right back.
No, that's fine.
Something happens always on the worst spot. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. First episode of the podcast, and yeah, that's okay, man. I totally expected stuff like that, but that's okay because we'll keep going here. No issues here. But yeah, that's Bonk's Adventure. So yeah, Mulan R-Type 2, Crayon Shin-Chan 1, Bonk's Adventure. So far, I think is a really solid list. And that's the thing is that's kind of why I've been interested in this list more than the previous ones is that I think this list is probably the best one since 7. Um, but yeah, maybe someday in the future what we'll do is talk about like the previous Tiny Tens or previous Big 20s or Mega 16s, whatever. I think that would be something fun to do. But again, we're not just gonna. This podcast is not just going to be multi-game race podcast because there would not be very many episodes of that. And again, right now the podcast doesn't have an actual name. We're just calling it podcast. But there will be a name. It's just it's not. We're waiting for probably another month or so because again, I am planning to change my username online, so it'll kind of fit in with that because branding. That's kind of a thing you need. Um, but yeah, there's a couple other topics I think would be cool for a podcast to do. Um, and every episode of every podcast episode that I'll do, I'm planning to always stream it on Twitch. And then if I need to make technical adjustments, I can do that like offline, or I can cut out stuff if needed or whatnot. Um, so I'm not ignoring the chat room. I'm just typing in there instead of talking directly. But anyways, I'll go ahead and move on to the next game here while Ariel takes time to do whatever he needs to. So number 5 is a game that I actually knew before this list came out, and that's Mickey's Ultimate Challenge, which we were talking earlier about minigame collections. This game literally is a minigame collection. It's a short one, and the reason this was put in compared to a puzzle game is that the puzzle games for Game Boy that haven't been in yet, like they weren't exactly appropriate for full game run. So a mini game collection was picked instead, and it's a pretty solid one, honestly. We're playing on any percent cake mode, which cake is like easy difficulty. So I don't exactly know what the difference between all of the difficult. Well, I know the mini games get harder, and I know a couple of them I think are on a timer. But on cake mode, none of them are on a timer. You just have to do them. And yeah, I don't think anybody's gonna have trouble with Mickey's Ultimate Challenge. What you have to do is you have to complete mini games, and then you get a bean, or you get an item, and then you give an item to a different character, and they'll give you a bean. And when you get 5 beans, you can build a beanstalk, and then you have to solve a dreaded slide puzzle. If you know how to solve slide puzzles, it's not going to be a problem for you, but I don't know how to solve them properly. I get the idea of how to solve a slide puzzle, but like I still find it difficult to do. Basically, for those who don't know how to solve a slide puzzle, at least the idea, you want to focus on one row at a time. When you get the top row of a slide puzzle, you don't have to touch that row ever again. That's that's basically the idea of a slide puzzle. You don't even have to touch that row ever again. Which, again, even though we're playing on cake mode, like that slide puzzle, man, it's impossible. I even played the Super Nintendo version of Ultimate Challenge, and the slide puzzle is just as difficult, and it's slower too. The pieces move slower, so it wastes more time if you keep making mistakes. But yeah, I don't think Mickey's Ultimate Challenge. There's not a ton to talk about with it. I don't think it's going to be really a problem for anybody. Um, I think it's a pretty. I mean, it's an easy game, and plus coming right after Bonk's Adventure, which can be difficult. I should stress that, like, it can be difficult, but I still don't think that one's going to be a major issue necessarily. Um, but yeah, right after Bonk's Adventure and before Cliffhanger, I think this is kind of a nice break, which I like personally. I like when lists like this have a little break or like an easier game just to kind of if you put 10 hard games all in a row, then you're going to be exhausted mentally and physically. Like I don't know, depending on the game, your hands could probably fall off or something. Batman on Game Boy, anybody? That freaking auto score, we have to mash the shoot button extremely fast. Gosh, that game's fun, but trying to mash is oof. Oof. But yeah, again, I'm not. I don't really. I'm not concerned. I don't think anybody is concerned with Mickey's Ultimate Challenge. If you're trying to get world record, then yeah, that's gonna be a fairly tricky grind. But overall, I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be fine. I don't know if Ariel has anything else to say on that, but when he gets back, I'll ask him. But I guess I will start talking about Cliffhanger, which is game number 6. And Cliffhanger is. Uh, it's a hard game, but to me, I don't think it's that hard. But then again, I also ran the NES version of the game, so I kind of was prepared. Cliffhanger is based off of the movie with Sylvester Stallone, which I never saw. I didn't even know it was a movie until the game got into the Tiny Tin, and I'm like, and then I finally started doing research on Cliffhanger. Um, but yeah, Cliffhanger is it's a platformer, but the physics and your momentum are just the strangest things ever. It's super odd when you're first playing. Um, and the game has, I think they give you 3 continues, and you have 3 lives per continue. And then when you run out of those, you're done. So Cliffhanger's dangerous in that regard. But that being said, I think, I mean, I enjoyed Cliffhanger at least. I think the NES version is better just because it's faster. But the Game Boy version is literally, it's the same as the NES version, except there's one section in a level where you have to watch for a falling rock by a waterfall, and then you have to ride the rock to the next area. There was nothing like that on the NES version, so why are we doing that on Game Boy? That doesn't make it more fun. And then a couple of the bosses are different in terms of health. There's the cave boss, which on the NES version you can probably punch him like 4 times and he's done. But on Game Boy, he has like 1,000,000 health, and he can hit you a lot. So yeah, I think Cliffhanger, like as far as physics goes, I think it's very odd. But outside of that, I think it's a fine game. Um, I find it interesting how I kind of am interested to know why it was chosen. Um, I'm not saying it was a bad pick or anything. It's interesting. It's interesting. Um, I even have a Cliffhanger cartridge. Yeah, I have 5 cartridges of 5 of these games in the list. Uh, I think one of these I owned prior to the list coming out, and then the other 4 I bought because of the list. Um, but yeah, I'll go ahead and talk about that now. I have a Mulan cart, a Crayon Shin-Chan 1 cart, a Cliffhanger cart, and then I have a Tom and Jerry cart and a Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise cart. The other 5 games, I'm going to use my EverDrive. Um, but yeah, I have a Game Boy Cliffhanger, and I bought the SNES version of Cliffhanger because I saw it at a retro game store for like $3. Or was it 3? It was like $3 or $4 at the retro game store. And so I picked it up. I was like, why not? And the SNES version is super different from the first 2 games. It's like a beat 'em up game. Um, Instead of a platformer. It's straight up a beat 'em up game, which I guess is fine. I mean, Sylvester Stallone beating people up. I mean, that's not an unusual occurrence. So, but anyways, I think yeah, Cliffhanger's kind of I don't know if I would say it's an out of left field pick. It's more of a it wouldn't be your first pick of a game. But that being said, I think Cliffhanger still works out all right. Speaking of out of left field picks, let's yo
Speaking of what, I just came back. I'm so sorry.
no, it's okay, man. I just started.
Uh,
So, well, if you want to give your opinions on Mickey's Ultimate Challenge and Cliffhanger, go ahead right now before we move on.
Mickey, that's it. It's the one that I picked, and um, it's really RNG heavy, but
That's true. Yeah.
you can still get a sub 10 minutes, so
Oh
it's
yeah.
not really.
Yeah. It's not a game to
And
worry about, but yeah, the
yeah,
RNG I probably should have mentioned earlier. Yeah, definitely.
and about cliffhanger, it's just it's like Mulan. It's weird because you see it looks like a bad game. Then you play it, it's not that bad. But then there are
Yeah.
some sections that are still bad. It's confusing,
Yeah.
but still,
Yeah.
I guess.
The physics and your momentum they're things that you have to get used to, but they're not easy to get used to.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
especially when holding up to run.
Yeah, God. I mean, I get it because if you hold, because B is your attack button, but it's like, and if you don't want to have attack and run on the same button, at least for a Game Boy game. So, it makes sense to have it be up, but that doesn't help a lot. I don't know
Say that
why,
to the
like,
Mario.
yeah, that's true. Well, for Mario, you just have to press the button once, and he'll automatically throw a fireball, and then you can start running after that. But Cliffhanger, it kind of because Cliffhanger, you just punch and then you throw items. But
Well, yeah, I guess.
yeah, but anyways, I kind of went on a tangent while talking about Cliffhanger. I was talking about how I have a SNES card as well, and it's that version's a beat 'em up instead of a platformer. So
Wow,
fun fact.
them up? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a different kind of Cliffhanger, but I don't know, man. It's weird. But anyways, I was on a or I was kind of trying to make a segue with out of left field picks because Cliffhanger I don't think is necessarily one of those kinds of games, but it's not necessarily a game that everybody knows. But if you want to pick an out of like a pick that's just out of left field, Fish Dude. Game number
Yes.
7. This game is I have trouble describing this one honestly. Like it's on one hand it's fun, but at the same time it's like it can also be really hard. Like I don't know. That's just my basically you use a fish to swim around and eat other fish that are smaller than you. But if you get eaten by a fish that's bigger than you die. You're done. There are passwords in this game and they're allowed, thankfully. But
And one thing to note is that the passwords are just
they're two characters. they're
yes.
they're just two letters. You just have to memorize. You can memorize the passwords. They're two letters. And Fish Dude, it's only beat the game any percent. You don't have to do the levels like A, B, and C. You don't have to do those. You just have to beat worlds 1, 2, and 3. Um, and the record finally is a sub 6 now. It's a 554 by. I have my document here. Let me take a look at who has it now. By Walranium. Walranium has the record now. It's sub 6, which is crazy. I didn't even think that was possible. Um, but yeah, I don't think if passwords weren't allowed, then Fishdew would be a huge problem. But it's not because passwords are allowed. So you can just keep trying the levels repeatedly. Um,
I
it's
just
one of those.
like to know.
Yeah, I don't.
I just I yes,
Go
because
ahead.
it's just weird.
Yeah,
It's
in
just
a, in
weird. I
a,
just
in a
like to know what were the developers thinking. Like, hey,
yeah.
we're going to do a game where you're a fish and eat other fishes.
Why is it called Fish Dude? Like, who's the dude? And like, are you is your character's name Fish Dude? Like, what? Why is it called Fish Dude? I don't get it.
I was
Also,
thinking,
go ahead.
I was thinking maybe it's a port of an arcade game or
Oh,
something. But
maybe it
no, this is a
is.
totally Game Boy original.
Hold on,
No, it's not.
I'm literally gonna Google this. I don't even care that we're doing an official
It's
podcast right now.
it's a Game Boy original game.
Oh, really?
It's
Yeah,
a
I
Game
didn't
Boy
know that.
original.
I
It's
wonder
not an arcade.
how much does this game go for on eBay? What the heck? 30. I'm not paying $35 for a Fish Dude cart. Why? Why is it that much? Maybe they didn't make a ton of copies. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. We're going on a huge tangent, by the way, but I figured this is still, in case you're wanting to know, somebody is selling a sealed copy of Fish Dude. Never been opened, and I like just as they call it on eBay, Holy Grail, impossible to find. They're selling it for $10,000.
What?
Why would you want to spend that much on this? This game can be beaten in 6 minutes. Why do you want this for $10,000? Imagine, can you imagine somebody spending $10,000 just to play in the Tiny 10 only to be told, oh, you can just use emulator, or oh, you could just get a flash card? Oh, God.
God.
Oh my gosh.
10,000 for
Why? Why?
why?
It's just fish, dude. Like, come on, man. But anyways, I don't think Fish Dude's gonna be a problem for anybody. I don't think so. It's such a bizarre game, but it's fun though. Like it is fun. It is fun. But I think in a race it's gonna be interesting because I don't know if I want to call it RNG. It's more AI. And well, I guess RNG because of where the fish are spawned and where you start in the level. But yeah, there is some randomness in the game that'll kind of uh it'll either level the playing field or it'll kind of separate runners. I know Mickey's Ultimate Challenge is more likely to do that than Fish Dude, but
Yeah, but the thing of Mickey is that you can adapt very quickly to the RNG.
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
In Fish Dude, if you get bad RNG, you can potentially just game over.
yeah, and plus it doesn't help that in Fish Dude you can get killed by if you're just trying to move through the level and then the big fish spawns literally right in front of you and eats you and you have no time to react. So, but yeah, any other comments on Fish Dude? After we went on like three tangents.
Fish Dude is just weird.
It's a fun game. Don't get us wrong, but man, it's easily the most bizarre on the list. But anyways, now we're going to talk about Belthic's favorite game in the list, and I say that sarcastically because he does not like this next game at all. Meanwhile, I do like it, and I actually was the one who sort of helped get this game into Tiny 10. So if people don't like it, this is totally my fault. Tom and Jerry on Game Boy, which I have a cart for, and I
If
bought it at
people
a
don't
retro
like
game
it, this
store.
is totally my. If people don't like
Yeah,
it,
this
totally
no,
my.
it is my fault. I kind of helped get it into it because I wanted to learn the game. I'm telling a story right quick. I wanted to get this game in the tiny or not in the tiny ten, but I just wanted to run the game because I had a cart and I was like, I'll run the game. I think it'll be fun. And plus, I was doing my Gotta Run 'em All challenge, and so Tom and Jerry, the record is 10 minutes 35 seconds. I'm like, oh, okay, this will probably be good. And so, it's a decent game. I'm not gonna say it's great. I'm not gonna say it's bad. It's a decent game. I think it's pretty solid all around. And then when I ran the game, Mo actually contacted me and he was like, "Do you think this game would be good for Tiny 10?" And I'm like, "I think it would because there's well, first off, there are passwords in this game and they are allowed for the race, but also I knew of a couple of like secrets where you can pick up extra health and extra lives. This game is a straight up platformer, by the way, and I was like, hey, if I need to make a tutorial or a guide or something, I can do that. And so he decided to put it in, and so then I made it before the list even came out because I knew Tom. I knew what the. Did you know what the list was before the? I think we both knew what the list
Yeah,
was before it was officially
yeah.
revealed.
I
So
think
we
most of the Game Boy Discord knew.
yeah, because yeah, Game Boy Discord, and we knew. So but when Tom and Jerry was confirmed, I told Mo, I'm like, I can make a tutorial or something real quick, and so I did, and it's up there. And from what I've heard, people seem that it helped them, which that was the goal. The tutorial is probably the worst tutorial I've ever made in my life, but the goal was if the game makes more sense after this tutorial, then I did my job. That's the goal. Um, but yeah, I think it's the thing about Tom and Jerry is the physics are just odd. Like they're not very like it takes a bit to get used to. And there's also like the game will eat your jumps and your inputs sometimes, but if you can adapt to that and kind of understand how the game works, I honestly think it's a fine game. I don't know if you've been putting work into Tom and Jerry or not, but what
Not
do you
yet, but I have
gotcha.
seen
Yeah.
it.
I don't know. I think it's a fine game, honestly. Of course, there's a slight bias because I knew the game ahead of time. Um, but without passwords, I could see it being a slight issue. But again, passwords are allowed, so if people were to completely game over, they can password back to wherever they were. And plus, I mean, I made a video tutorial on how to at least trying to explain the game as best as possible, But I think because I don't remember. I think when I was running Tom and Jerry, I think at the time only Fish Dude and Bonk's Adventure were accepted for the list, and there were some games that were being considered, but I know Mo wasn't quite sure yet. But then Tom and Jerry, when he saw my run, he was like, "I think would this be all right?" Because I know he was considering it at the time, and so then I guess once he saw my run, he's like, "Okay, well, I think we can do it." Um, but yeah, Belfic does not like this game. He does not like Tom and Jerry.
Also,
Yeah.
can we talk about? Is there any Tom and Jerry game where you play as Tom instead of Jerry?
I don't know, actually. That's a good question. Because, yeah, this game you only play as Jerry. Tom is an enemy. I don't know. That's. You don't even play as Tom, so why is it even called Tom and Jerry? Why not just call it Jerry?
Exactly.
Why not just call it Jerry? Jerry the video game, and everyone's like, "Who's Jerry?" It's like Jerry from Tom and Jerry. It's like, why not call the game Tom and Jerry? Oh well, you can't play as Tom. It's like, then why call it Tom and Jerry? You just go back and forth. It's a paradox. No, people
Just
can say
call
what
it
they want
Jerry
about.
and the other cat.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. People can say what they want about Tom and Jerry. I think it's a fine game. I think for some blind runners, they're not going to. There's a couple levels where it's kind of hard to tell where you're going or like where you're supposed to go. Um, but again, I don't think it's going to be a deal breaker for anybody necessarily. I think it's just going to be like it'll take a while. But that's the thing is that if you want to have a good showing in the Tiny Ten, you've got to put in some practice ahead of time.
Yeah,
So
I think for blind people, Tom and Jerry will be just like Fish Dude,
yeah,
where
I can see
it
that.
may take long,
Hmm.
but you're not really losing any progress because of
Yeah, passwords. Yeah. If you wanted to do a run and then submit it to the leaderboard, you can't use passwords. But if you just want to do the race just for fun, then yeah, I don't think this is going to be a problem for anybody.
exactly.
Yeah. So that's 8 games we talked about already, and now number 9, which this one I don't even think it's that weird compared to like Fish Dude. But it's still just a. This game is a really short game, and it comes right before the final game. This is Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise, which I think was an arcade game at first.
I'm searching for it right now.
Okay, I think it was an
Maybe it
arcade
is.
game that was ported to Game Boy. And this game technically it's beat the game, but this is slightly different in that this category is called one loop because after you beat the bonus stage or after you beat the fourth bonus stage, the game just loops back to the first stage, so you just have to do one loop of the game. But there's no continues, and you only get 3 lives. So,
Okay, no, another Game Boy exclusive.
oh, okay, interesting. It is an arcade game though, technically. Like it plays just like an arcade game, but it's for the Game Boy. Um, but I, somebody mentioned, I think in either the RGL Discord or the Game Boy Discord, that this game they thought was like super slippery controlling
Yeah.
Mr. Chin, and I'm like, yeah, that would probably be a really good way to say it. Basically, what you do is you plant trip mines to kill enemies, and then you eat the food that they drop. That's it. I don't know. That's pretty much the
Imagine,
entire game. You just do that for a few levels, and then you're done.
just imagine having that idea and to the boss of a brand of a game developer and
Yeah,
saying, yeah, that could work.
yeah. It's really. Gosh, I wonder. If, I would love to be at some of these business meetings where they're pitching game ideas and like, how did this one get approved? I mean, when you actually play the game, it's a fun game. Like I think it's pretty enjoyable, and plus the bonus stages you don't have to do anything, so you kind of get a little breather here and there. And then the actual stages, if you want to go really fast, it's going to be a bit difficult because you don't want to touch any enemy. If you touch an enemy, you die. But if you're just wanting to play safe, it's not too difficult for that. There is some RNG in the game. Um,
Yeah, especially stage 6.
yeah, the stage where the enemies are at the top and they will either fall in through the center or they won't. That is easily the worst stage in the game. That is completely. Basically, there's a stage where you're in the middle, and then on the top, there's one hole where an enemy can fall through. You want them to fall through, that way you can kill them, but sometimes they'll just walk right over the hole and they won't fall through. It's completely random, so yeah. Um,
I'm
gosh.
curious to see how many random drops will be on the race.
Yeah. I
Like,
am also curious because you can also break blocks to get items, and some of the items are bombs where it just destroys all the enemies on the screen. I wonder, like, I don't know if anybody has figured out like a way to manipulate items or anything like that. I
I
don't think
don't
so.
think so.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't even know if they can be manipulated. I don't have a clue.
We're going to need to test it,
Yeah.
just like Kero.
Oh my God, Caro. If we ever do an episode on previous Big 20s, we're gonna have a field day when we get to that game from Big 20 number 11.
Yes.
Oh my God, that game. That's a look. Okay, we're going on a slight tangent again. That's a fun Caro Karopi 2 for the Famicom. That's a fun game, but God, those mini games. Ugh, I don't want to see those ever again. Like I really don't. But we still have the race. The actual Tiny Ten race is on November 16th, so there's still like 3 weeks roughly until. Uh, so hey, we still got 3 weeks to figure out manipulation for Mr. Chin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just save state and look at
Y-
go,
Yeah, do that,
exchange
and then
scores, and
get the people who did the science
UA.
on Karo Karopi to help out with Mr. Chin. That's all you got to do.
Exactly.
If they could figure out Karo Karopi, maybe they can figure out Mr. Chin. All right, enough about Mr. Chin for now, at least. Final game. Now, this last game I haven't done any full runs of yet. I haven't. This game I haven't. I'm gonna finish learning this probably after I finish because I'm running Smash Brothers Ultimate for a online marathon on Sunday. So probably after that I'll look into Mega Man 4, but I haven't done that yet. But I have played a couple other Mega Man games in my life, mostly NES games. I did play Mega Man 2 on Game Boy, but I never beat it. I got to the final boss and got confused on how to beat him. That's as far as I got.
The thing about the final boss on Mega Man 2 Game Boy is that only the Buster.
Only the Buster kills him?
Yep.
Oh,
Only
okay,
the
interesting.
Buster or the Pogo Stick,
Ah,
but
gotcha.
that's it.
Gotcha.
And
Maybe
any
that's why I
other.
never beat him.
And the bad thing about the Pogo Stick on Quantum Mega Man 2, this is a quick detour, but just wanted to
Yeah,
say
go
that,
ahead.
is that once you use it on the final boss, the hitbox is so weird that you fall into the boss. So even though you're damaging Wily, he's also damaging you.
Oh my gosh.
So
Yeah.
that's when um I have like a sub 25 on Mega Man 2 Game Boy, I think.
Yeah.
I always have a couple of E tanks ready for the final boss because the fastest way to kill him is with the pogo stick, but you lose health like crazy.
Yeah.
So you really need to have at least one E tank just to be.
Gotcha. Yeah. It makes sense though to stock up on E-tanks, that way you can just keep tanking the damage and then healing and then keep going. But anyways,
Yeah,
ha have you put much practice into Mega Man 4, at least as of as of recording this?
not yet.
Yeah, same.
I only know the route. I know how the mechanics work because Mega Man 2 Game Boy it's pretty. much the same, just without charge shots.
Yeah,
But it's pretty much the same.
yeah. Um, it's well, first off, there is a password generator and there's a whole route for the game. So if people are going in blind, they at least know what the recommended order is to go through the game. Um,
Yeah, and there is also a tutorial from Manix.
yep, there is, which I haven't seen yet, but I am planning to look at that. Um, I've played Mega Man 1, 2, 3, and 6 on NES, and I've played Mega Man 2 on the Game Boy. And I actually did play Mega Man 1 on Game Boy as well, Dr. Wily's Revenge, but I only did one run of that.
Mega
Um,
Man 1 Game Boy is so
it's
difficult.
it's hard. It's really hard. From what I've heard, Mega Man 4 on Game Boy is the second easiest. Mega Man 2 being the
Yeah,
easiest.
Mega Man 2 being the first.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So, I think, well, first off, I think having a big name like Mega Man as your final game, I think that helps out a lot for this.
Yes,
I do,
I think that's a really
yeah.
good choice.
I think before the list was fully chosen, I was slightly pushing for Kid Icarus because I know Kid Icarus is a big name as well, or at least like
Yes.
people, if you know, people who play games or know Nintendo, they've heard of Kid Icarus. But I don't know, maybe in a future Tiny Ten. But
Well, the thing about the Game Boy Kid Icarus, even if Kid Icarus is well known, the only games that are known are the NES Kid Icarus and Kid Icarus.
Uprising, yeah.
The Game Boy version of Kid Icarus, aka of Myths and Monsters, is just it's not at all.
Yeah, I did play it a little bit, and I mean, there's some things that look like the NES version, but overall, I found it super easy, honestly. I never beat the whole game, but I found it super easy. I know the NES version people hate, or at least some people hate it. I think it's fine, but I think
I do hate it.
the thing
I
is
do
that
hate it.
because a lot of these games on this list are really short, I think having a longer game kind of balances it out. And another thing is that
Yes.
I know the Tiny Ten Remix. Well, I guess both Tiny Ten Remix events. Basically, Tiny Ten Remix is they pick 10 games that have already been in a Tiny Ten, they remix them, and they put them in a different list with different other games. And the first list had Mario Land 2 Glitchless, which was, I think, around half an hour, basically. And then Tiny Ten
Yes.
Remix 2 had Gargoyle's Quest, which was, I mean, for me, it was a 35-minute run. So I think that kind of balanced it out.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that even if Tiny Tin Remix 1 had Mario Land 2 glitchless,
Hmm.
it may be a long run. That was already glitchless full game on a Tiny Tin before.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. Which I think, I mean, Mega Man 4 has now broken that record, but I think that was the longest game ever put into a Tiny Ten. The thing is that
Yes.
when Mario Land 2 was put into a Tiny Ten, I know Marble Madness on Game Boy was put in, and that's like a 2 3 minute run. So, um, I think that sort of kind of balanced it out there as well. But then again, that whole list was super hard. I know there were not a lot of runners on that one, just because the list was really hard.
It took me 5 hours,
Oh my
almost
gosh.
6 hours to beat Tiny Tin 6, and two and a half of them were on Double Dragon
Freaking
alone.
Double Dragon. Oh my god. I can't wait for a retrospective on previous Tiny Ten. Maybe we will do that. Maybe we'll talk about the previous list and we can bash Double Dragon because oh my god, that game. That game was the last straw for me. I backed out of the race after trying to play Double Dragon. Oh my god. But anyways, I think Mega Man 4 is a proper finish just because it's a big name. So everyone knows Mega Man. Um, I you know be When you think about really popular games on the Game Boy, a lot of them have already been in previous Tiny Ten lists. So you can't
Yes.
put in Mario Land or you can't put in like I don't know. I mean, Link's Awakening is really long, but I mean that's just an example. Like you can't put that in because it was already in a previous list. So it's almost like I hesitate to say scraping the bottom of the barrel but you still have, like, we still had Mega Man 4. It's like that's never been in. Well, hey, well now you can put it in, and hey, you want full games? Well, Mega Man 4 is it's a an easier game, even though it's a longer game. Hey, I think it'll work out perfectly, and yeah, it did because I know at first Mo was only planning to put in half the game for a list, but instead it
Yes.
ended up being the entire game, and I don't know. I think it's a good finisher as well because I know when I did Tiny Ten Remix 2, in fact, we were both in that race.
Hmm.
Gargoyle's Quest was put in, and that one in the Tiny Ten, I think it was 5 was where it was in.
Yes, Tiny Ten 5. It
Tiny Ten
was
5. You only
only
had to,
three bosses.
yeah, you had to beat the King's Palace boss, which was the third one, which that was about half the game. But in Tiny Ten Remix 2, they said you're beating the whole game this time, which well, first off, I found more fun, and I thought it was appropriate because a lot of the games in that list were pretty short. But then it's like here's a longer game. Um, it does kind of, it's sort of like the first 9 games are sort of just to separate everybody some, and then Mega Man 4 is where you can really get an idea of where people are at. It's
Yes.
almost like you're racing 9 games and then you're playing Mega Man 4. It's almost like that. I hesitate to say it is, but it's almost like that. But
I really like this setup though.
yeah, I do as
I
well.
feel like I feel like having a list of short games and then ending with a bigger one. Um, it really helps a lot to continue the pace of the race.
Yeah, I think so as well. And especially a bigger game at the end as well, because I know, and again, we can talk more in detail if we do another episode like this, but Tiny Ten number 9, I think, had that problem where none of the
Yes.
games were super well known, and the last game, like, no one really knew. And the last game was also an auto scroller, which, I mean, it was a rail shooter, but, like, it's an auto scroller. Like, I won't get too much into it here, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't fully learned Mega Man 4. I do plan to, and then once I finish learning that, then I'll start getting good at these games. That way I'll be prepared for a race. But that is all 10 games. So now I guess we can kind of talk
Another
about
thing
it
that
overall. Go ahead.
another thing that I wanted to point out is that with Mega Man 4 in this list, um, that only Mega Man 5 Game Boy is left
Yeah.
for all the Mega Man games to be in.
Yep. Maybe Tiny 10 11. I don't know. But first off, the thing that I think, well, let me go through. So there's a Tiny 10 tracker made where basically there's like a summary of everyone's times, and then there's a resource tab, and then there's like an instructions tab. But then there's like people have spread their own personal spreadsheet of people who are running in this thing, and there are, let me think. Well, I think Belfic is commentating this one. He's not actually going to play, but there's one, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8 people who have spreadsheets that are putting times in. There were not even 8 racers in the last Tiny 10. Like, clearly something is going right with this Tiny 10. And like I said before, I think this is, like, I am always going to be biased and say Tiny 10 number 7 was the best list. And I say that because that was the list that I won the race. But, like, I think this is the best list since 7. Like, I think 7 is still a better list, but I think this is the best one since because, well, first off, all of these games are beat the game. And I love races like that where you have to beat these games because then you're learning new games that you haven't learned before, and then you can submit your times to a leaderboard and you can increase your speedrun arsenal, which for me, I love doing that. I mean, I run more games than anybody ever officially now. I can say that now until Citrus wants to run more games and beat me again. I can say that for now. So to be able to run brand new games and put them on a leaderboard and put them on my profile, I love that, and I think this. I think Mo did the right thing of this is the 10th time we're doing this, so let's put in all full games, but these games have never been in a Tiny 10 before. I think it works out perfectly that way.
Yes,
Um, and then one more thing, and I'll let you talk, but I think I think Mo made a lot of jokes about Mulan and like how that's never going to get in, or it's like, oh, you need 10 times that are sub 10 to be put in or whatever. I think kind of listening to because he asked for a lot of feedback after Tiny 10 number 9, since that one just was, there was only one person who actually put in practice and stuff. After that, he kind of was like, I need feedback on like what should what should change and all that. It's very obvious that he listened to that. At least I think.
yes,
It's very obvious he listened to that. And I think that's why this list is better, just because the person in charge of it truly is listening to feedback. And I think
that's
that's what
something
made it
I
better.
really really like about Tiny,
Hmm.
because the Big 20, for example, also listens,
Yeah,
but how do I put this? They don't ask for games, or they don't
right.
look at which games are unknown or something like that.
Yeah.
I can express this. I can't really explain this too well, but that's something that Mode does with the Tiny Ten.
Hmm.
Him he asked for some games we would like to see. Um, when when people joke about when is this game going to be on a Tiny Ten, and he says always there's always that little bit of chance that
Yeah.
it may be put because it's a joke now.
Yeah. And that's the thing is I think maybe there it's almost like it's fun to, or sometimes it's fun to be like, hey, when's this getting in, as a joke or whatever, like. But I think maybe what happened was I think there's a there is a time where you're kind of crossing the line when it's like if so many people ask for something to get in, like for example, I know one game that Mo said that's never getting in, or like is just extremely hard, is Alfred Chicken on Game Boy. I know he said that he's like that's not getting in unless if it can be like viable. I don't. I've never played Alpha Chicken on Game Boy. I'm assuming that there's like one life and no continues or something dumb. I have no idea. But for example, if everyone's like, "When's that getting in? When's that getting in?" When everyone knows that's not getting in, but you keep asking for it, I can tell that that can get really annoying. And I think maybe. I mean, the exception to this is, I guess, Mulan, because a lot of people joked about Mulan, but now it's actually in. But also, I think because the thing is that when I was running Tom and Jerry, I was like, this would probably be a decent game for Tiny 10 if he ever wants to put it in. But I never straight up went up to him and said, hey, put this in Tiny 10, or like, when's Tom and Jerry? I kind of just let the run speak for itself and let my personal thing, just let that speak for itself. Kid Touretsu on Game Boy, I ran that randomly because Zara sent me a ROM of it 2 years before I ran it, and I never messed around with it. But then I finally did, and look what happened. It was in Tiny Ten number 7, and I didn't even. I mean, I can talk about that another time, but I think maybe it was getting to the point where it was kind of going over the like it was going overboard basically. Like everyone kept asking for certain games, or people kept making jokes, and it kind of was getting, maybe it was getting to Mo or something. I don't know. Um, but I think because we all know those people who they just straight up don't listen to feedback, or they don't ask for it, or they try to do it on their own, or that kind of a thing. But I think he really took it to heart on this list, and
Yes,
he also said that there's only going to be one brand new Tiny Ten a year now, which I think works out better because it's kind of getting to the point where you're running out of games, and so I think it works out fine. That gives him more time to really find good games, or try to really figure out a better list
and not
instead of
only
trying to
that, but
squeeze it together
not
and
only
you know.
yeah, not only that, but because speedrunning is always maybe a game that wasn't viable before has a new strategy or something,
Yeah,
and now it's viable, and it's a really good game, but you were not putting it because it's really hard. Now it can be done.
yeah, definitely. Yep, I know. I mean, I don't even think Mulan was on the research document at first because I don't even know why, but then it ended up being accepted. So, um, anything can change. Some games that aren't considered viable, maybe one day it will be. There's really no
Yeah,
telling. Um, but yeah, I think overall this is. I mean, I was not in Tiny Ten number one, but that seems like it was a really strong list. I know seven was a
it
super good list.
Tiny Ten One was really good. The bad
Yeah,
thing about it is that only 5 people joined because it was the first one
it
and
was the
it
first
was
one.
not
Yeah,
known. Out of those 5 people, 3 people finished,
oh man.
but they were not like really putting the time in. And I know that because when I did it outside of a race setting, um, I didn't really put that much time because, well, it's not a race.
Yeah,
But the thing is, I got a time that if it was on the race, I would have won.
yeah. That's sort of the thing is like the first race of a multi-game speedrunning race. Like I guess people aren't really sure. Like, okay, should I be practicing, or it's like, this it's something that isn't really. I mean, the first big 20 people like practice for and everything, but it's like, you know, like it's one of those things where you don't really understand. Like, if that first race happened again, the results would be way different, and the winning time would be a lot
Yes,
faster. So, it's interesting. It really is.
I know Mega 16 one also had fewer people,
Hmm.
and that's the I think Mega 16 was a little bit like an exception,
Yeah.
but I think that same as the Super 16, but I
Hmm.
think that's because people already knew about the Big 20 and the Tiny 10 and knew what they were going to do.
Right.
It's just a different platform and different games, but the main setup and mechanics are there.
Yeah.
And because people already knew, it was easier for them to jump into it.
Right. That makes sense. But yeah, I think overall what we're saying is this list is a lot stronger, but it's not just I don't think it's just because of the games. I think it's also just because of the stuff going on behind the scenes was a lot better this time
Yes,
around. And the feedback was taken in properly, which I think helps a lot. Um, and that's the thing is like some of these games like outside of Tiny Ten I probably would never have even played or would have been excited about, but then it's like, hey, this will be in the next Tiny Ten, and then all of a sudden we're extremely interested in about it. It's not just it's almost I'm trying to think of an example. It's kind of like Tiny Ten 7, how there were a few games that like Kitaretsu was in, Tetris was in, and I had played those. But then it's like there was Jetsons in that one. I would have never played it outside of it, but because it was in that Tiny Ten, all of a sudden I had like a really strong appreciation for that game. Not at first. That game at first I didn't like, but then the more I played it, the more I liked it. So you kind of learn to appreciate it more in a race like this, but at the same time, it's like the stuff behind the scenes has to be good as well. Like you can't just be
yeah,
throwing a list together just so that you can say you have a list. I think a lot more thought and care went into this one, and I think it shows.
yes. I think Tiny 10 8. It wasn't really really bad,
Hmm.
but that's where it was starting to fall a bit.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think because that's the thing. That list had some games that were okay, but then it had Maru's Mission. Yeah, that I'm not gonna go into maybe one day I'll do a podcast with. Maybe we can talk about games we hate or games we've kind of been forced to run before that we don't like or whatever. I don't know, But we'll
I
save that
have
for
tons
another.
of those. I have tons.
Same. But no, I think yeah, I kind of agree with you on there. It's like you could kind of start to see like something was going on, and I'm not gonna
Yeah,
sit here and I'm not gonna sit here and like say I know what it was or all that kind of stuff because at this point it doesn't really matter what happened. All we know is that hey, it's a lot better now, and everyone can
yeah.
tell it's better. So
And
yeah,
I really think that if Mo just relaxes a bit and mm, if he does a list every year, that's that's totally fine. In my opinion, I would really prefer waiting more and
yeah,
having more time to relax to
hmm
then come to a race where the list is really strong. It has had time to be researched and all that,
yeah,
and then make the race day be a good race, be
hmm
um, and then just relax a bit
yeah,
because that's the thing. Putting too many races together, it all starts with just having to make everything and not having time to do anything else.
yeah,
And I know that part because of experience.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think that goes with any multi-game race as well. Is that I think some, I mean, I know because I know Bad Breaks and Dexter put together the Big 20. I know Mother Brain puts together the Mega 16, but it's like, I think the more time you take to really figure out what a good list would be, even if you're short on games, like you can still figure out like what a good list would be or whatever. But,
Yes.
I think taking time to really, for lack of a better term, to optimize it, to make it a really decent list, I think that's what gets people to play is to do that. And I think, uh, yeah, I kind of think like, hey, we need to not do two of these a year. Hey, I think that works perfectly. It's almost like when a game gets delayed, it's going to be better because they're just taking
Yes.
more time to
Yes.
refine it. So that's sort of what's happening with a multi-game race event like this is that people are saying we need more time to make it really good. Okay, I'd rather have that than you put Maru's mission and a bunch of I'm teasing, but yeah, putting a
No,
ton.
that I agree. I
Yeah,
really agree.
yeah. But anyways, I don't know if there was anything else I had to say. Is there anything else you want to say about any of this Tiny Ten shenanigans stuff?
Mickey's Ultimate Challenge is the best game ever.
It's a good game. I will agree to that. I never even said what my favorite game on this list is. I know I can't say Mega Man 4, or I can't really factor that in yet. Ah, God, I don't know. Even though I haven't been very successful with it, I do like Bonk's Adventure. I really do. Like I don't know. I like it. I think it's fun.
Probably my favorite game. I mean, I have already told you it's Mickey, but
Yeah.
um, it's a honestly, I think it's a close second to Mega Man.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, Mickey is just something that I wanted to put in that I have been that I said Mo and Belfig about putting. Not a lot, like not every 5 minutes.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not
Right.
going to say, hey, dude, put.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I asked him, hey, would this game would be a good idea? And
Hmm.
he told me we'll see. He then played it on his Game Boy Challenge,
Yep.
and he said, "Hey, it's a good game for a Tiny Ten." So yep,
Yeah,
let's put it in.
I remember Mo did that for Kitaretsu. Like he did that for his Game Boy challenge after he saw my run on the leaderboard, and then he played it himself, and he's like, "Yeah, this is in." Like that's what I was told from him when I asked him in Discord, and he said that's how he chose it was like he tried it out, And then after he beat the game, he's like, "Yeah, that's in." Like it's that game's not hard. Like it's a dude. Maybe
The only bad thing
one
about
day we're
Kitaretsu is the final stage. That's the
yeah,
only
the
thing
final
bad
stage of
about Kit.
Kitaretsu is it's yeah, that stage is awful, and I have the record in that game, and I am saying it's awful. One day we're gonna do a podcast where we're just gonna sit here for 5 hours and talk about Kitaretsu. I
Yes.
think no, I'm just teasing. I'm not gonna trap people here. I do want to try to get maybe I know Toko Tomcat said he was interested in doing one of these with me. So maybe again, we're not just gonna talk about speed running necessarily or multi game races. I think maybe one day we can talk about who we want in Smash Brothers Ultimate or something, or just we're gonna have all kinds of stuff on this podcast. At least that's what I'm planning. Uh, but Ariel, you're welcome back anytime if you'd like. Thank you for joining me on this first episode of the currently unnamed podcast.
You're
Highly.
welcome. And again, really sorry of because of what happened. I
What did
I
happen? Just
have
out of
the worst
curiosity.
luck ever. I was here. I was ready.
Yeah.
I had time. I had nothing to do,
Okay.
and family comes to my home, and it's like, okay, yeah,
Yeah. All right.
sure, why not?
Okay.
Just in time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just I have the worst luck ever.
Did they like need you for something
um.
or were they just being
Well.
loud or?
Not really. It's just they wanted to see me.
I gotcha. No, my family does that from time to time, but usually, if my door to my room is closed, that means don't bother me, or at least generally that's what it means. But of course, they can open my door if they really do need me or anything.
Yeah, but the thing is, first they don't know what I'm doing.
Like, I gotcha.
Second, I don't have any brothers or sisters,
Oh, okay.
so I'm pretty much the only one here. My
Yeah,
mother is there, but they meet my mother tons of times,
yeah,
so it's just yeah, okay.
yeah. Good. I think that's an appropriate end to this first episode. Is just talking about, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. Nah, but anyways, that's our thoughts on this Tiny Ten list. If anybody wants to join this on November 16th, I think the race is going to be at 1 Eastern time. Uh, we're going to
I
race these
think
10
so.
games in
Yeah,
a row. I'm going to be in this. Ariel, I think you're going to be in this, unless I
I
heard
really
differently.
hope so because I haven't had time to practice too much. But I think
Gotcha,
I really hope I can.
gotcha. But hey, there's going to be a lot of people in this from what I'm seeing. So this should be good. So anyways, that's it. That's Tiny 10. I don't know when the next episode of this will be. Well, once we have a topic and once I have a guest with me, we will talk about whatever. Ariel, thanks for hanging out. Much appreciated. Anybody who's watching on Twitch, thank you for hanging out. Um, have a good one, everybody, and as usual, take care. Bye bye.